Let's talk about here the decision by the Indianapolis Colts to retain both Ryan Grigson and Chuck Pagano. That roster seems really, really bad surrounding Andrew Luck. Is it a mistake to bring those guys back?
Well, listen, I'll say this much. I don't look at, when I evaluate the Indianapolis Colts, I certainly don't watch games on film every week and go, wow, this is a poorly coached team, or wow, this is a really dumb game plan by the defensive coaches or Rob Chudzinski on the offensive side. That's not the case when I really evaluate them. And DA, you know this. I do this all year long. I do free agency, the draft, all of that. So I'm not disappointed that they kept Chuck Pagano. I understand that. The Ryan Grigson part of it, that part of the equation, I am a little confused about, because I don't think anybody that's really evaluated the Indianapolis Colts over the last few years, you can sit there and go, wow, they've really orchestrated a top-tier roster around Andrew Luck and made a really quality defense for Chuck Pagano and his defensive staff to thrive as well. So I like Chuck Pagano. I like keeping him. Listen, the Colts play tough. They're in just about every game, but when I really look at them and evaluate them, it's lack of offensive linemen, it's lack of a running back, it's no top-tier pass rushers, no great run stopper on defense. Really, nobody great in the secondary other than Vontae Davis, and he's getting long in the tooth as well. So that is where I am a little confused with the situation in general.
So you could understand Jim Irsay wanting continuity, because we always preach, hey, if you want to win, you got to stick with a coach and stick with a front office, and continuity is really important here. But what is that fine line? Because the New York Giants, it paid dividends when they retained Tom Coughlin. But sometimes you feel like teams like maybe the Cincinnati Bengals keep slamming their head against the same wall by keeping the same guys in position. What is that fine line?
Yeah, it is. It's a very tough It's a very tough line to toe there. I think you have to at least see a silver lining in the future. I think that's the one area I look at. And for the Indianapolis Colts, I don't see the silver lining still. I would still say their defense is probably 2-3 years away from being a legit top-tier defense in football. There's just too many holes there altogether. So, again, it's about, I guess, knowing the relationship between your coach, your GM, knowing they're all on the same page, which also makes this conversation a little more confusing, too, because it doesn't sound like Grigson and Pagano are always on the same page, especially if you read between the lines and everything that went on last year. The continuity thing is great. I get it, because it doesn't ruffle feathers and it continues things status quo. But, I always look at guys like, the New England Patriots is an organization to go where they realize when to hold them and when to fold them, for lack of a better phrase. They go, oh, our fourth-round draft pick is being outperformed by a free agent. Well, we're not going to be political and just let the fourth-rounder make the team just so it looks like we didn't botch the draft pick. They will just say, no, abandon ship. The free agent's better than the fourth-rounder. We made a mistake, and everybody will forget about it because we'll win games all year long, and then no one remembers that we cut our fourth or third-round draft pick. That's where I think a lot of times a lot of these organizations mess up. They're too worried about their own ego, how they're going to be viewed in the public eye, instead of just looking at the big picture.
Chris Sims is our guest here on CBS Sports Radio and the CBS Sports Network. Same kind of things going on in Houston right now. Some people suggest that Bill O'Brien's coaching for his job. Now, 3 years, 9-7 all 3 seasons, back-to-back AFC South championships. So they've hosted playoff games the last 2 years. But what does it say about Bill O'Brien's lack of some type of vote of confidence that he could go to the playoffs back-to-back years and they still kind of don't trust him? What does that say about that situation?
Yeah. Well, listen, I'll say this. DA, I've been around the NFL my whole life. I know a lot of people. I do think Billy O'Brien's in trouble there from the people I know around the NFL. I think at the end of the day, there's a disconnect, a little like we were just talking about with the Indianapolis Colts, between Rick Smith, GM, who just got extended as far as his contract extension, and Billy O. There's obviously a philosophical difference there between the two, and it looks like it's going to be one or the other. And, yes, I do think if the Houston Texans lose tomorrow, Billy O'Brien could be on his way out. I'm not so sure, even if they win and then lose in the divisional playoff game to, let's say, New England, he still might be on his way out. I think it's one of these marriages that might be coming to an end regardless. And I think, listen, I think the world of Billy O'Brien. I think he's a really good football coach. That's that staff down there, I know a lot of them from the days in New England. Romeo Crennel was on my dad's staff with the New York Giants. So there's a lot of good things there, but sometimes the head coach, the GM don't seem to see eye to eye, and I think that's part of the issue. And, of course, the quarterback situation isn't smoothing things over there either and making things any easier on both of them.
Well, is it because Bill O'Brien's kind of a surly personality, feels like he can be a bit rough around the edges? Is that what's hurting him right now?
Well, reading between the lines, I do think a little bit. He's a true Northeasterner. I think that's the way to really say it. I mean, he's a guy from, I think Massachusetts, if I remember correctly. And he is. He's a little blunt. He's in your face. He's not going to, politic and BS anybody. Like, if he thinks you stink, he's going to tell you stink. If he thinks you're great, he tells you you're great. Billy O's going to tell you how it is. So that's the thing I respect about Billy O, but not necessarily does that type of attitude always translate to happy relationships in an NFL organization.
Steelers and Dolphins coming up on Sunday on CBS. Earlier in the season, we actually saw the Dolphins pull the upset and win pretty easily, 30-15. On that day, Jaya Jaya went for more than 200 yards in that game. Is there any way that the Dolphins can get Jay Ajayi off again, and is that a way that they can keep this game close?
Yeah, I mean, I do think they'll be able to. Yes, first of all, that has to be their plan of attack. Dominate the line of scrimmage. Let's run the football, high percentage completion passes. Let's keep Big Ben and Le'Veon Bell off the field, because I think that will be Big Ben and Le'Veon Bell's formula as well. They're going to go, hey, you guys, Miami Dolphins, you guys stink at stopping the run. Your defense isn't very good. I think Pittsburgh realizes, yes, their defense statistically, it's ranked in the top half of football. It's somewhere between I can't remember, top 12, somewhere in that range. But I don't think realistically it's quite that good. The differences between the first matchup and the first matchup when Ajayi ran for over 200 yards. Shazier wasn't playing. Sean Davis, now their new starting safety, who's been phenomenal, the rookie out of Maryland. He is now in the lineup more consistently. Bud Dupree is healthy as far as outside linebacker. He's one of the most talented guys they have on that defense in general. So from that standpoint, Pittsburgh's a much better football team. Where I do get concerned with Pittsburgh is no Cam Hayward. Stephon Tuitt, their other defensive tackle, is just coming back from a knee injury. And their defensive success, DA, a lot of time is predicated on their athleticism. They have all these hybrid guys that are 265, 275, 285. They can play DN. They can play outside linebacker. But they don't necessarily have those great run stoppers. And this Miami offensive line is a tough matchup with them because they're very athletic with first-round pick, Tunzel with the gas mask on during the draft, and Brandon Albert. So they're athletic enough to stay on the blocks of those Pittsburgh guys. That's the one thing I noticed watching back the film. But regardless, I expect Pittsburgh to win the football game because the defense is a little bit better, and that offense for the Steelers is rolling right now. They've changed their identity. They are a downhill smash-mouth football team that does play action and uses the pass game off their run game, where earlier in the year it was all about let's spread it out and throw it around the field, and we'll run it every now and then.
Chris Sims, NFL analyst for Bleacher Report and CBS, joining us here on the show. So when you look at the NFC side of things, the big one that stands out this entire weekend is Giants and Packers. Earlier in the week, Bart Scott was trying to tell me that the Giants defense is overrated because outside of their familiar foes of the division, they really haven't beaten anybody. Now, they did beat the Saints and the Lions earlier in the season. But I wonder about you. Do you think it's also a bad matchup? That's what his bigger point was. This is a bad matchup for the Giants defense because Aaron Rodgers can go up-tempo, spread it out, and keep their bigs on the field. Is it a bad matchup for the Giants?
Yeah, I mean, listen, they're one of the defenses that can match up very well with Aaron Rodgers and company because they have the cover corners. But I think as a whole, yeah, this is one of the worst matchups for the Giants in all of football from the standpoint of, okay, the Giants have a very good defensive line. This is one of the best offensive lines in football. The Giants can rush the passer, but I think we would all agree they're not like one of the best 10 in football as far as getting pressure on the quarterback. And this is the best pass-protecting O-line in football. And I don't care how good your corners are. When you have somebody like Aaron Rodgers who can sit back there with time and then create more time with his phenomenal athleticism, that is a dangerous matchup for this Giants team. Third downs will be key in this game. That's the one area. The Giants defense has been phenomenal on third downs, But the Green Bay offense is phenomenal on third down. Aaron Rodgers is the best third down quarterback I've probably ever seen in my life. He's the best quarterback I've ever seen in my life in general. And then the red zone will be a huge key too. Can the Giants keep Aaron Rodgers out of the end zone? The Giants, of course, have one of the best scoring defenses in football. They're number 2 in football, but Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers are one of the best scoring offenses in football, and Aaron Rodgers, because of his ability to move in the red zone and attack the line of scrimmage, he puts great stress on linebackers and safety because they see him about to run and they go, oh, man, we got to abandon our coverage responsibility and go tackle him. And then he throws a laser behind your ear, and it's a touchdown. That's where it gets dangerous for the Giants. But I'll say this, too. This Green Bay Packers defense, their secondary beat up. They're one of the worst in football at stopping the pass, and we know the Giants' offense isn't anything special, but that would scare me a little with Odell Beckham Jr. and company, so where I think the Giants can have a little more success than usual on the offensive side of the ball, but still expect the Packers to win the game like 23-20, 23-17, somewhere in that range.